So today's question is God real? This is Religion is Mental Illness, and we're going to talk about this. Is God real? Really? Can you prove it? So the biggest argument I always get on this is usually related to I felt the presence of God, or there's some sort of evidence somewhere. It's never concrete. It's always speculative, or it's conjecture, or it's some sort of discussion about look at history, look at what happened in of course, Christian is the one I always go to because that's where I'm from. So the Christian example is, look at the history of Jesus. Look at the eyewitnesses, which there aren't any. So there's evidence that's not evidence. Now, if you were to come at it from an anthropological perspective and say that there's historicity, that there's, written text, all of the written text related to the existence of Jesus is almost across the board completely arguable. I can debate any of it. Now, I've heard from a couple of people that there's more information about the existence of Jesus than there is of Caesar, Julius Caesar. What does that matter? That doesn't mean that because we believe Julius Caesar was a real emperor of Rome, that Jesus was the real Son of God. That's not a rational correlation. What we need to look at here is, if we're trying to prove that there's a God, if we're trying to say there is a God, what do we make the metric, or what is the litmus that we use to give us a sign, to give us proof that there is a God? Well, as a scientist, I'm going to say that I need empirical evidence. I need empirical proof that there's a God. That means that if I go into a laboratory and I create an experiment and I execute that experiment at least 30 times to make it statistically viable, at least 95% of the time, when I take some action, I pray, or I start reading a religious text or something of that nature, God shows up. It doesn't count if a person says they feel him. That doesn't count, because as we've said before, if you're saying that there's something there that isn't there, that's mental illness. That's mass hysteria. The power of suggestion it's powerful, and it will make you believe that what you are seeing is real, or that what you're hearing is real. When somebody else says that it's real, and enough people tell you, it becomes real. But that's not truth. It is not truth. The reality is, there is no statistically rational empirical evidence of the existence of a God, or gods, or angels, even ghosts. And, you can go on YouTube and tell me that you saw, ghost hunters, or, the spiritualists who investigate different kinds of spiritual phenomena or go into a haunted house or whatever, and because we saw it on YouTube, it must be real. No. Nope. That can be duplicated. It can be faked. I can make it look like a door opened itself. I can make it look like pots and pans are flying around my kitchen. They do it all the time in the movies, and they do it on a low budget. It's not hard to do. When people tell me that they've heard something, or they know they've seen a ghost, or they know they've experienced some sort of spiritual interaction of some kind, my first thought is, prove it. You say that this happened. How do I know that it happened? And then, of course, the next argument, people are going to say, well, what about the wind? You can't see the wind, which isn't true. I can use a thermal camera to see differences in temperatures. If you really want to get into it, I can do a number of things to create the wind. It's just airflow. Wind on the surface of the planet is just differences in air temperatures and pressures that causes the high pressure air to move in a low pressure direction. It's a simple fluid principle, and I can prove it. I can prove that. Is there a God? No. How do I know? Because there's no proof. There's no evidence. And conjecture is not evidence. Giving me an argument about, well, I know there's a God because I had an experience, or I can feel him when I pray, or something of that nature, that's conjecture, and it's not viable. That's not an argument. That's at best, that's an opinion. And it's usually an irrational opinion. It's always an irrational opinion. God is not real. You cannot prove it. Just the same as Richard Dawkins says, you cannot prove that there's a tooth fairy. And claiming that he's there but you can't see him is the same argument as saying the tooth fairy's there but you can't see her. It's not real. You can't prove it. Saying that something's there that isn't there, it's crazy. It's mental illness. I'm Isaac Newton. This is Religion is Mental Illness. Until next time, have a good day.